Hi, Dave. Hi, Jane. I already said hi, Frank, but I'll say hi, Frank again. And hi, Leon. So good to see all of you. Oh yeah, hi, Neil. I think we said that earlier. Okay, we're recording. So I thought I would give a talk that I got a little glimpse of last week somehow. I don't know how that happened, but it did while John Junta was giving his message. It's probably something he said that I got a little glimpse of, which goes right with what I was talking about in the centering moment this morning, of how when we do the centering, we oftentimes are listening to something that someone is saying on a Sunday morning, and suddenly we realize we aren't listening to them. Something they said made us take a little detour for a moment, and that's good. That's fine to take that detour. It usually follows that we take a detour back to a moment or a memory or something. I've had a lot of moments like that where I just said, "Oh my gosh, that's what that means." Something that happened in my life that it was just, a big question mark inside my head, and it suddenly turned into an exclamation point. It got straightened out. So that's that's something I really enjoy, and you probably do as well. Well, what I heard, or what I somehow picked up from that, was something in there that he said, I think that led me to write down the phrase, get out of the way. And I, you may remember that he said something, I don't know if it was him or just something that I picked up in my own mind, and it turned out that way. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out of the way from what? Get out of the way from what? Usually, I'm trying to get out of the way of myself. I'm trying to get out of the way of that I have thought in the past or that I have felt in the past. Something that has limited me in some way from really expressing who I truly am. It goes back to that talk about what is the Father. If all this time you've been with me and you don't see the Father, I am the Father. That's sort of the same idea. All this time I've been wanting things to get out of my way. I am the problem that's getting in the way. So I am starting to realize that more and more and more. I forget it easily. I don't know how that is, but I easily forget that I'm doing it again. There you go. You're getting in the way. There you go. You are allowing yourself to be led by something else. The early followers of Jesus, they didn't call themselves Christians. That came along later, and it was actually a derogatory statement. It was disparaging toward them. Christians, the way that people said it back then, and as though something was wrong with all that. I could get into that, but that'll be for a different time. Right now, I want to stay on this subject as best I can. And that is, they called themselves, or they were called followers of the way. And they didn't use a cross as a symbol, they used a fish. And I find this interesting because they were sort of a secret society. One of them would come along and draw a part of a fish, just a curve like this. If the person was also a follower of the way, they would draw in the sand the other half so that you got a complete fish, and then they would just wipe it out. And that was their way silently of saying, we're together in our belief system, aren't we? And then they would go aside and in private and be able to talk openly. But they couldn't just walk up and say, "Didn't I see you at the last followers of the way meeting we had?" No, you didn't do that. You just, silently did it. I actually learned that from my father many, many, many years ago. who, he's passed on a long time ago, but I still hang on to that idea of drawing the half of the fish, and that was the main symbol. That's why even today in Christianity we see little drawings, simple drawings of fish. That's why it's there. Okay, I do it every time. I lead myself off the track just a little bit. I'll try to stay on track. Early followers of the way called themselves followers of the way. The question then is, well, what is the way? We know what followers are, but what is the way? What was this way that they were following? Well, in primitive Christianity, let's call it that now, these followers of the way were following these teachings of their master Jesus, the one they ended up calling the Christed one, or the Christ. The followers of the way did these things that he taught them. They were kind. They were loving. They were generous. They were compassionate. They were forgiving. Ooh, that's a big one. Forgiving. They held conscious awareness as opposed to just consciousness. Conscious awareness. In other words, they felt themselves and tried to be enlightened to the ways of the world that would actually change the world into a world that would be much lighter. My burden is light, said Jesus, and that's what he was talking about. Well, what happened? That's our question. What happened? Why did this get changed? These early followers actually lived sometimes in communal existence and shared everything they had with one another. But that didn't work out too well for them because of a long-held belief in their mind of mine, yours, and mine. And it was difficult for them to share because some had more and they were sharing with those who had less, and it was very difficult for them. So this communal existence fell away, and they picked up a different way of viewing the way. That's what happened. That's what got in the way. What got in the way is, and this is a real simple statement that I just love. Hang on to this one if you will, please. Fear of losing something you have or not getting something you want. Fear of losing something you have or fear of not getting something you want. Those two ideas, they represent all sorts of false events appearing real, F-E-A-R. Or there are other ways of looking at that. False events appearing real. Fear of losing something you have or not getting something you want. Well, that would take care of communal living real quickly. That would really put a crimp in the idea. Then there comes along control of others, the desire and the need to control others and their ideas. Not only what they have, but what they think. Controlling what other people think. If you are in a situation where someone else is telling you how to live, how to think, and how to behave, you have lost the whole idea of the original followers of the way. And when I say you, I include myself there. I should say we have lost that. And it comes and it goes, comes and goes, comes and goes. C.S. Lewis put it, that coming and going in our consciousness. He called it the law of indulation. The law of indulation. Sometimes we're on the good side of it, sometimes we're on the deep side of it, the darker side of it. But however it's going along in life, he called the law of undulation, meaning that's just the way things are. They just show up that way. However, I don't believe that Jesus actually believed that. I think he held to the idea that if you believe something and have faith and do not let go, it will appear for you. That you will be able to move a mountain. Anything is possible if you do not doubt. Well, if you do not doubt, you've gotten out of the idea of the law of undulation. You've gotten outside of that. That'd be great, wouldn't it? To just live in that sense of awareness where everything is okay as it is and unfolding for sure as it is planned by a greater consciousness than just your own. Something else that comes along and gets in the way is our ego, our belief in ours and yours, mine and yours, those opposite. And when we are in those opposites, we are living in a kind of consciousness called relative consciousness. Black and white, dark and light, yours and mine, us and them. It's very easy to get involved in that. When we do, we limit our consciousness from following in the way. Well, how do we return to that? How do we get back into letting go and letting God? That's a good way just to put it. How do we get there? Let go and let God. Well, what are we letting go of? Think about that a moment. And then go back to the idea of the fear of losing something you have. How do we get to the place where we can let go of the fear of losing something we have or the fear of not getting something we want? How do we get there? We have to let go of a lot of things to be able to do that. We have to let go of giving value to the outer. We have to realize that the outer holds a value of its own and that it's not up to us to proscribe in the outer how it ought to or should be. Just get in a place where we are allowing God, allowing spirit, allowing life to be what it is, as opposed to trying to define it, limit it, understand it. Go beyond that understanding. Go to the place where peace passes all understanding. Get to that place. When we do get there, then we no longer need words to describe, for we are in a place where everything is encased in positivity. That'd be okay, wouldn't it? To be in a place of positivity. We get out of the way and get into the way. That helps a lot, doesn't it? I want to get out of the way and get into the way. The way. Spend more time, each of us, if we spend more time focusing on not wanting to control our own lives or the lives of others, then a lot of worry leaves our existence. Worry is just holding on to something as though it's important enough that we ourselves can change that which simply is. Now, one of the things that Jesus was asked, because the earliest believers believed that the world was going to end soon. Even Jesus believed this. He believed that the world was going to end soon. So he just said, let's just let go of all this unnecessary stuff that we hold on to. And let's just live as though tomorrow or today is the last day of our lives. Just live that way. Everything will be provided for us because it's only for a short time and then it'll be over. Well, then something happened. Something historically happened. Jesus was arrested, accused of crimes. It was decided that he was to be crucified. Now, I think he was allowing this to happen because he thought this is just a part of the end of time. This is the end of all time. You know, we are told that on the cross, Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Well, we're not sure if that's exactly what he said, but let's just hold on to that a moment and use the idea that it is what he said. What would he believe that he had been forsaken of? I think he would believe he had, and I'm not the only one to believe this is not original with me. There are many scholars who believe that if these are the exact words that he said as he cried out, he was wondering why the world wasn't coming to an end with his death. He saw that it was going to continue on, and he's going, wow. I've believed this all the time, Father within. I thought that's the answer I was getting, Father within. And yet here I am, feeling forsaken, feeling like I will not live on, I will not see the end. You know, his followers at that point had to make a decision. They had to make the decision whether or not they would continue following or change the answer that they gave the outcome. They decided to change the answer and live on and stay together. And the answer they gave is that he didn't die. He was resurrected. He lived beyond this and still lives today. And that became the message of the way. That's the start of and the beginning of what later was called Christian belief. Christian belief. Now, as one of my professors in Unity's School of Religious Studies said, you believe what you want to believe. You pays your money, you takes your chances, you spin the wheel, you decide for yourself. I have decided for myself this. None of that matters. None of that matters to me whatsoever. I have chosen to try my best to be a follower of the way. The way of, as I stated, forgiveness, kindness, loving behavior, generosity, compassion, conscious awareness. Yeah, I admit it. I'm woke. Woke is just a way of saying conscious awareness. Forgiving, loving, conscious awareness. Am I fully enlightened? Heavens no, you guys know me. I'm not fully enlightened. But I'm always consciously trying to attain more of who I truly am. A being on this planet. A being on this planet who is trying his best to become consciously aware. I fall and I get up and I go again and I fall and I get up. How about you? Are you aware that this is happening to you, that you are on the track of the law of undulation, as C.S. Lewis calls it? That's all it is. It's just going through life, this way and knowing that something and someone, or whatever you want to call it, something else is in charge. The universal being of all. And I try to take my doing in life, and that's what I want to express at the very end of this. What I try to do is put the doing in life in line with a conscious awareness of compassion, love. And sometimes I have people call me stupid. You're just a fool, if you think that's what's going on. And I just have to look at them and think, I'll just be quiet and I won't take it personally and move on. So that's it. That's what I want you to think about, is getting out of the way, getting yourself out of the way of yourself, and getting more into the way. God bless. Thanks.